Here we are at part 2 of our Friendly Nations visa series, and if you did not watch part 1, I highly recommend you go back and watch that one before you watch this one. The reasons being is because I'm really going to take you through the steps you need to do to prepare for coming to Panama and actually applying. So the things that you need to be doing in your home country, like getting an excellent attorney, and I tell you who mine is and give you all of his information, and getting all of the documents together. If you're coming from the US, I give you all of the links and everything to expedite that process for you. All of that is in part 1. So go back and check that out, and then come back and meet us over here in part 2. For the rest of us, we're going to continue on in part 2, and this is where we're going to complete steps 4 and 5 of the 5-step process of getting the permanent residency. So all of this is going to require us to actually be in Panama to complete. But before we left, there was another thing we had to take care of, and that was our banking situation. We had a little bit of a situation here in that Brian only had 10 business days to complete his residency application. That was it, because he needed to go back to Los Angeles and work. Kramer said 8 business days to get it done. We figured if we had 10, we had padding in case there would be a problem. So we felt comfortable with that. Now, on day 1, when you arrive in Panama, the first thing you have to do is open the bank account, because the attorney cannot apply for your visa until you have the bank account in place, because that's one of the requirements for the visa. So we had to make a decision. Did we want to try to open the bank account on our own, or did we want to pay $400 to have our attorney help us with that? Well, I did what I normally do when I'm a little befuddled about a situation. I went to the expat boards and asked for advice. There were 2 trains of thought. There was the steam train approach. Oh, yeah, we got here in 1928 and went right into the bank and no problem opening a bank account. You don't need an attorney. Again, most of the people on the steam train had been here for years. So it's been a while since they had done any banking here. And believe me, laws have changed. Then over here, you had the bullet train people who were like, yeah, we're all modern and we've done this in the last year, and what a nightmare. Not everyone said that, but the vast majority of people said that it took us weeks at a minimum, some people up to months, to get a bank account open. Why is this? Because there's so much regulation and red tape and bureaucracy, and Panama has to really make sure where your money's coming from, because Panama is known to be kind of a money laundering place. So they have so many regulations in place to make sure that you are on the up and up. Well, we didn't have weeks or months to sit around waiting for a bank account. So we had to make the executive decision that we were going to go ahead and pay Kramer that $400 to take our paperwork, which were those documents that I mentioned in the last video that the bank needs, and expedite them. Get them into the banking pipeline and in front of a bank manager and pre-approved before we even arrived. That would make things much simpler. So that's what we did. All right. That said, the very last thing we needed to do before we left, visa-wise, was to make sure that we had the proper amount of funds in our account. So we had to take that in cash. If you are opening an individual account, that requirement is $5,000. If you are opening a joint account, that amount is $8,000 for the both of you. So you don't really save, but you have to put in less money, $2,000 less, right? Now, like I had said, Brian and I are applying separately for our Friendly Nations visas. So we're not filing as a married couple with a dependent. And again, I talk about why that is and why that's important in part 1. So we could either do individual bank accounts at $5,000 each, or we could do a joint for $8,000 each. And we decided to do a joint. One bank account, less money, easier process, and be done. Okay, so now we're going to put $8,000 in our happy little pocket, and we're going to fly to Panama and start our process. All right, so our process begins, and it begins on a Monday. Kramer lays out your timeline. I mean, they are so good about that. So you know exactly what to expect before you get here. What's going to be happening every single day during your application process, which me as, you know, OCD, detailed, obsessive girl is thrilled to know. Okay, so Monday. First thing, we head up to the Kramer offices in downtown Panama City. Beautiful building, 35th floor. Felt like a rock star walking in. Super nice offices. So we get in there, we do some preliminary like paperwork stuff, like housekeeping kind of stuff, you know, sign this, sign that, let's get some extra copies of your passport, blah, 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 blah. And then once all of that is handled, oh, and we get to meet the faces behind the names and the emails that I'd been talking to. So that was really nice to actually get to meet the team that's been supporting me through all of this. Okay, so then from there, we go to the bank. And we have a Kramer representative with us, which is awesome. And we're sitting there, and we're sitting there. And he comes back and says, Multibank is telling us that they have just changed their policy and they are not going to accept any accounts from foreigners. The only way they're going to accept a foreigner's account is if they're already a permanent resident. Okay, that throws up a big roadblock. All right, so that was with Multibank. So I said, what are our other options? He said, look, I'm going to see what I can do about trying to get in touch with Multibank and figure this out. But we're also going to try to quickly apply to some other banks. It started with a C, Credit Corp. That was what it was. We're going to try to apply over at Credit Corp and see if we can get this expedited. But as of today, your bank account was supposed to be done so we can go to the next step, but it's not happening. Oopsie. Okay, so we go back to our Airbnb bank account less. Still with $8,000 cash on us that we had on us since Friday because we came in on a Saturday. So now we're 3 days into carrying all this cash, which makes me super nervous because I never carry cash. Ever, ever, ever. I hate cash. I use a card for everything. If I can't use a card, I don't want it. And to carry that much cash makes me sick. So Panamanian muggers, if you see me on the street, really don't waste your time because you might get 3 Balboa coins off of me if you're super lucky. Okay, so next day is Tuesday. And right now we have no more bank account information than we had on Monday. They have not figured it out. But we're going to go ahead and register our passports at immigration, which was supposed to be the next step anyway. And we don't need the bank account for that. We just need it for the actual application. So we go to immigration. Here's a beautiful picture of the building. We go to immigration and Kramer representative is there to hold our little hands and walk us through the whole process. When you go in, it looks like kind of like what the DMV looks like walls with all of these windows with numbers over the windows, and then there's these screens that tell you, you know, you get your ticket and it tells you where to go. And honestly, had I not been in there with an attorney's representative, I'd still be standing there looking like this. Get an attorney. Okay, so they figured it all out, and then basically we go downstairs and we sit down there, and it took about 2 hours from the time we got to immigration until we were done. Basically what we did at immigration was just go sit at a desk for like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or something like that, while a bunch of papers got shuffled back and forth and we signed our names onto things we had no idea what they were, and just, that was that. So then we were free and we could go. At this point, there's still no word from Kramer about the bank account. And I am at endgame. This is as far as I can go in the residency process, and we're going to talk about why a little bit later. However, Brian is still on the board. He can still play. Okay, so now we get to Wednesday, and Kramer says, hey, we have figured everything out at Multibank. Meet us over there. We're going to get this done today. Yes! Now, Wednesday, normally in the normal timeline, had we had the bank account open on Monday, would have been an off day for us. It would be the day that Kramer actually goes and files the application at immigration for us, and we don't need to be there for that. But now we're coming back into Panama City to open the bank account. So we were at the Multibank Plaza Pacifica branch, this one right here. And we got there at like 10 o'clock, I think. Yeah, like 10 o'clock. Oh my God, I'd almost rather go to the dentist office. We sat at this desk, not saying a word for like 3 hours straight, while the guy on the other side of the desk, the bank officer, typed on the computer. And like at one point I texted Brian and I'm like, I think this guy's just playing video games. Like what is he doing back there that is taking so long? Okay, so long that we got a lunch break. No joke. So we go to lunch, we come back, and then within like half an hour, 45 minutes, we were finally finished with the whole thing. So once the account is actually opened, then you have to get a letter from the bank. Well, then once the account is opened, then we had to go to the teller window and deposit the $8,000 into our account. At that point, we immediately have to get letters from the bank, one for Brian and one for me, since we're applying separately, that say that we have a joint bank account with the required $8,000 in it. Okay, it's important that you do that step before you do this next one. Because once we have the letters, now we can go back into our bank account and withdraw the government fees that we needed, which were like about $1,400 each, that were just like strictly government fees. So Kramer gets those checks, and then they're going to take those checks to immigration with them the next day when they actually apply for the visas. Except mine, they're going to put in a folder. We'll get to it. Okay, so I'm frantically texting and saying, look, to Kramer, we need to leave for Bocas on Friday. Bocas is like a 8-hour drive on a good day, but the road to Bocas had been destroyed and in a Hurricane Eta, and we didn't know what we were getting into and how long it was going to take us, and the whole thing was super stressful, and we wanted to leave on Friday because we needed to be back by Wednesday to get Brian's passport and get all of that together, and if anything else had gone wrong. And they're like, we're not going to get it done because now we have the bank account, it's Wednesday, and then so tomorrow we have to go to immigration and actually apply for your visa. So that's a whole day. I mean, that's like normally their day 3. And so I'm like, okay. So we changed our plans and planned to leave on Saturday instead. So we're at the Airbnb and on Thursday, and we get this message from Kramer. Hey guys, we got your application submitted and approved, or not you guys, but Brian's application submitted and approved. And can you be to immigration like at now o'clock to get your picture taken? We were like an hour away. We rushed down there, got to immigration, and this time it was only like 20 minutes, if that. So Brian, all he had to do, we met the Kramer representative there, who shuttled Brian over to where they take the pictures. Literally, they take your picture, and in 10-15 minutes, they hand you back your temporary residency card, which you can see Brian here grinning like a Cheshire cat, and then proceeding to make absolute fun of me for not being as Panamanian as he is. That's how he treats his wife. Just so. Okay, so he's now almost done. At least we can go to Bocas. The only thing he has to do at this point is come back and pick up his passports from Kramer in a few days, because the government holds on to those passports while they're processing everything, and then they give them back to Kramer, and then we have to go pick them up from Kramer. So now we're free to go to Bocas, and we go to Bocas. This was Thursday, and on Monday afternoon, Kramer said, hey, we will have Brian's passport here on Tuesday. Come and pick it up at our offices at your leisure. So we did our Bocas trip exactly how we had planned on doing it. We came back, we picked up his passport on Wednesday, and Kramer really got us out of there on time. Even with the bank delay, they really pushed it through and got our stuff done. And I am so appreciative for it. I'm so thrilled we spent that money to get them to do the bank account. Otherwise, we would have been in a mess. All right, so Brian's done. And speaking of mess, let's talk about yours truly. So, when he picked up his passport, When he picked up his passport, the reason that they had it is because the government was putting his multi-entry visa stamp in it. here's a picture of what that looks like. So now let's talk about my problem and why only Brian was able to get his temporary residency card. So here we go. When we got our FBI reports back when we were still in the United States, Brian's came back with like a gold star on it and a check mark and a little sticker with a happy face and the president's personal cell phone number. Mine came back with a rap sheet. And my heart sank because I did not have any idea how this was going to affect my ability to get residency. We had had so many roadblocks up to this point. I mean, literally, we started this process in like February with purchasing our property. We put our deposit down. COVID hit. The borders closed. Everything was in chaos. Just a nightmare. And then here I am faced with yet another roadblock. And to say that I was disgusted and disheartened and stressed would be an understatement. So I wasn't expecting this, which tells you that I'm not some career criminal that knew I had a rap sheet. But I am going to give you like the super short version of what happened so you understand just how unbelievably ridiculous it was. So about 11 years ago, I was married to my now ex-husband. We were living in Colorado, and he had recently broken his back in a horrible skiing accident and was laid up in a hospital bed in our home where my two teenage sons, which I don't know which is worse, husband with a broken back or two teenage sons, in the dead of winter in Colorado. And I'm trying to take care of all of them and work at the same time. On top of all of that trauma, I had wrecked my Jeep. So now I'm having to drive my husband's truck. And I'm coming back from work and I get pulled over and I'm going literally like 3 miles over the speed limit. I kid you not. I mean, it's even on my rap sheet. So, because I didn't get a ticket for it, but it said it on my rap sheet. The officer said, look, I'm not going to give you a ticket. I'm just going to give you a warning that you need to slow down. I need to see your insurance, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm in my husband's truck. I can't find his insurance. It's not in the glove box. It's not in the console. It's nowhere to be found. Well, eventually I found out that it was in the overhead visor, which I never would have thought to look there. So she's like, okay, you can't find your insurance. That's not a problem. All you have to do is take a copy of it to court, show it to the judge, and it'll all go away. I'm like, okay, great. Here's the dumb thing. I couldn't email it in. I couldn't even just snail mail it in. I couldn't fax it or anything. I had to actually go to court and present it in person, which is the stupidest thing ever. And I had so much going on, it slipped my mind. I didn't even think about it. I mean, my plate was full. Fast forward about 6-8 months later, I'm in the county where we had another home in Colorado. I get pulled over for speeding. The officer and I were chitty-chat, having fun, kind of talking back and forth. She goes back to her car. She comes with my license and everything. She comes back and says, there's a warrant out for your arrest. Now, we had been kind of joking around, so I thought she was joking with me. Yeah, she wasn't joking. La Plata County, Colorado, where the original ticket was from, put a warrant out for my arrest for not showing up for a fix-it ticket. I'm not even, I can't. So, I mean, this literally was the easiest arrest on the face of the planet. The officer, I explained everything to her. She's like, oh my gosh, this is so stupid. She didn't even like arrest me and put me in her car. She let me follow her back to the police station. I got out. They had to do like a kind of obligatory put handcuffs on me, but they didn't even put me in a cell. They didn't want me in a cell with all the criminal people. They let me sit outside with them for a few hours until my husband posted bail and got me out and the whole thing was over with. Well, that's on my FBI criminal report, and it came back. And I sent it to Kramer, and I said, what do we do about this? And they said, okay, we now have to file what is called a visto bueno. Immigration has to review your file and make a determination as to whether or not they're going to allow you to apply. Like, you've got to be kidding me. And, I mean, I was trying to get some, like, reassurance out of them, like, this isn't a problem, is it? You know, it's so minor, and they were like, we can't make any guarantees, which I can understand. I mean, they couldn't say, oh, yeah, don't worry about it, and then it comes back and I freak out, right? So they say that process was going to take 6 to 8 weeks. Well, we were supposed to be in Panama in like 4. So there was no way that Brian and I were going to be able to do our process together. So that's why it was separate. And on top of all of that, it cost an extra $400 for the Visto Bueno filing. So, all right. So if you have anything on your FBI report, you're going to go through Visto Bueno, and you're going to have to pay for it, and you're going to have to wait for it. There's no way around it. All right, so now that's why I sit here in Panama City. This is not my home. Kind of wish it was. It's so super nice. But I'm sitting here in Panama City, and I'm waiting for word on this thing. I'm waiting to hear if I've been approved or denied. At this point, I don't know. At this point in the process, I have my bank account, and my passport has been registered at immigration. So if it comes through, all I have to do is take my passport over to Kramer so they can apply for the visa, and then go back and get my picture taken for my temporary residency ID, and then go back and pick up my passport a few days later. So that's kind of where I am in the process. If it's denied, I don't know what we're going to do. I'm not thinking about it. I've heard many people say on the boards that they've had misdemeanors and it has not been an issue, especially anything over 10 years. I did hear recently of a story where a guy came to Panama, he bought property, and then he started his residency. He had felonies, and they denied him his residency. So now he owns property here, but he can never get residency here. So you really need to know what's on that FBI report and figure it out before you get here. So if you think there might be anything, no matter how minor, if there was an arrest, no matter how minor, be aware of it and know that it's going to take longer. So I'll come back and update this when I hear word. Right now, I'm about 6 weeks in, so hopefully any day now, I'll know what's going on. Look who's back from immigration. So I got a call from Kramer about 3 days ago, and they said that the Visto Bueno had come back, and I'm approved. Yes. Oh my gosh. So much stress relieved. You do not believe it. I mean, this was like, I've got about 10,000 hurdles ahead of me over the next few years, but like this was one of the major hurdles. The next one is actually closing on the property, but I'm in. So I had to go take them my passport so they could do the application. And then that was like Thursday. And so they did the application on Friday. Today is a Monday. I went down back to immigration to have my picture taken, and here I am with my shiny new ID card. Check that out, with my fabulous tape job, so you cannot steal my identity in Panama. Yeah, don't even try it, thieves. I'm ahead of it. I don't even know if that number means anything. Anyway, so I'm so happy this part is over, but not really over because the process isn't ended yet. Brian and I now have our temporary residency cards, right? My passport is still with Kramer. I'll go in a few days to go pick it up with my multi-entry visa stamp in it, which I won't need because I'm not leaving here for a while anyway. But the final step in it, this is just temporary residency. Our application is still being processed, and our permanent residency should be available within 3 to 6 months. So when that happens, I will give you guys an update. So thumbs up for Kramer and Kramer. That team was fabulous, answered all of my questions, took such good care of us, supported us through super stressful times, and I cannot recommend them highly enough. That's the end of this series. Has a happy ending, which I'm thrilled about, and I will see you on the next video.